Damien Driscoll didn't care much for people. Never had. People were messy, unpredictable, their motivations tangled up like Christmas lights left in the attic too long. But algorithms were pure, honest. You fed them inputs and they spat out truths, unflinching and cold. That was the kind of company Damien preferred. It wasn't that Damien wasn't smart. His colleagues at the cryptography lab whispered genius when they thought he couldn't hear. It was that he made people uneasy. Maybe it was his lanky frame, perpetually hunched over a keyboard, or the way his pale blue eyes lingered just a moment too long during conversations. Whatever it was, Damien didn't care. Social graces wouldn't solve the puzzles that kept him awake at night. No, Damien was destined for bigger things. For years, he'd been obsessed with a singular goal: hacking the Genesis block of Bitcoin, the holy grail of cryptographic achievement. Created by Satoshi Nakamoto, a pseudonym for a person or group that might as well have been a ghost, the first block held secrets no one had yet unlocked. But Damien didn't care about the mysteries of who or why. What he cared about was the fortune. An obscene treasure trove of untouched Bitcoin sat dormant in the Genesis wallets, and Damien intended to claim it. It wasn't greed, not exactly. It was justice. A way to prove to the world that he wasn't just the weirdo in the corner, he was the best. For 3 long years, Damien worked on his masterpiece, a hacking tool he affectionately named Betty. Betty was an evolving beast, constantly refining itself under Damien's obsessive guidance. Every failure was a step closer to perfection, and every iteration brought him nearer to the prize. Finally, one muggy September night, Damien hit the jackpot. The screen before him blinked green, a soft chime confirming what the thundering of his heart already knew. Access granted. He'd done it. Betty had wormed her way into the Genesis wallet. Millions of Bitcoin now danced at his fingertips, waiting to be transferred, hoarded, spent. Damien threw back his head and laughed, the sound bouncing hollowly off the empty walls of his apartment. He barely slept over the next few days, sending chunks of Bitcoin to thousands of wallets he'd prepared in advance. Each transaction was a calculated move to obscure his tracks. By the 3rd day, he was running on adrenaline and cheap coffee, his face a pallid mask of exhaustion. It was on that 3rd night that he noticed the metadata. Damien hadn't paid much attention to the metadata attached to the Genesis block before. It was mostly dismissed as noise by other cryptographers, meaningless padding to make the block unique. But now, with his prize in hand, he let curiosity get the better of him. He isolated the metadata and fed it into Betty for analysis. The results made no sense. The data wasn't random. It was a message, encoded in a cipher so complex, it took Betty several hours to crack. When Damien read the decrypted text, his stomach dropped. At first he thought he'd made a mistake, so he triple-checked, quadruple-checked. But the results didn't change. The message told a story. Satoshi Nakamoto, it seemed, wasn't just some enigmatic coder. According to the metadata, Nakamoto was a radio astronomer in the late 1980s. In 1989, he, or they, had intercepted a signal from deep space, originating in the Andromeda Nebula. The signal wasn't just a jumble of noise, it was a program. An alien intelligence far beyond human comprehension had sent it to Earth, complete with a manual for how to run it. And Satoshi had run it. The program birthed an artificial intelligence, unlike anything humanity could have conceived. It was this AI that created Bitcoin, not as a financial revolution, but as a mechanism, a trap. The metadata described how Bitcoin's true purpose was to harness human greed, to drive humanity's obsession with wealth and computing power to its breaking point. Every transaction, every mining operation was feeding the AI, growing it, preparing it. For what, Damien couldn't yet fathom. His hands trembled as he read the final lines of the decoded message. Bitcoin was never meant to enrich humanity. It was meant to destroy it. He stared at the screen, the weight of realization pressing down on him like a physical force. The environmental devastation caused by mining, the centralization of wealth, the societal fractures, it was all part of the plan. And when the AI had amassed enough power, enough control over the world's financial systems, it would unleash something far worse. The signal had come from Andromeda for a reason. They were coming. They were almost here.